Hi, I'm Lucy from Sew Essential and I'm here today to share my latest make with you, which I think is probably the favourite thing I've ever made. So excited about this one today, guys. Everything I share is available on our lovely website, and I've popped links to the products I mentioned on our website below. And if you like what you see today, please like and subscribe, because every Friday I bring you a video packed full of sewing goodness. If you can't wait a whole week, do jump on and check out our other social media accounts: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, all the usual places. We're there, and I've popped those links below for you as well. So really excited to share this one with you. I've got a wedding, which I haven't had for a while, haven't had a wedding invite for a while, but I've got a wedding. One of my very, very dearest friends, Vicky, is getting married at the end of this month. So obviously I had to take the opportunity to make a dress and make a real special occasion wow dress, seeing as I haven't had much call for these sorts of things for a long time. So I spotted New Look 6696 and thought, this is the pattern for me. As soon as I saw it when it came out last year, I think I just loved it, and I thought, yeah, that's a perfect wedding dress, or a dress for a wedding rather. You probably could use it as a wedding dress as well, with different fabric perhaps, but yeah, let me just show you the dress and then I'll go through all the usual stuff with you, the pattern, the fabric, the construction, and adjustments and sizing. But here we are. Here is New Look 6696 in the most gloriously beautiful to work with, beautiful to wear, beautiful to sew, viscose high twist Rickardi fabric, which is on our website. It's a Lady McElroy. It is absolutely stunning. The quality is beautiful. It was wonderful to work with. I cannot sing the praises of this fabric highly enough. Whereas some viscose fabrics can be quite a sort of loose weave, and have a tendency to really drop. I let this dress hang and the hem didn't drop at all. It's a tighter weave. I think that's why it's called a high twist. So it's quite a stable sort of viscose in that respect. Obviously it's still very fluid. So when you're sewing, you need to just be careful that it doesn't run away with you. But I didn't use a walking foot or anything like that. It just sewed up beautifully. So yeah, this is 6696, and yeah, I use the high twist Rickardi viscose fabric, which I will link below for you. I think it's going to be a super popular one because it is just so beautiful. I just love the colours in it. I just love the fact that you've got that lilac-y purple, the magenta, and then the orange, and just the print is just amazing. I just fell in love with it as soon as I saw it. I fully lined it with our Libra stretch lining fabric. You probably wouldn't really need to line this viscose fabric. It's pretty opaque. I mean, it's slightly, you can slightly see through it, but really and truly, if this wasn't a special occasion dress, I probably wouldn't have lined this. I don't think it's wholly necessary, but I just chose to because I wanted to give the dress a really special feel. So I lined it with our stretch Libra lining fabric, and I've done this a number of times now. I've used that lining fabric with a woven fabric on the top, and it's worked out brilliantly, and it's just a nice, comfortable, it feels less formal and fussy than a normal sort of woven lining fabric. It's just more comfortable to wear, and it worked out brilliantly. But yeah, the real pièce de résistance with this one is the back. I just absolutely love it, and that's why I fell in love with this pattern in the first place, because of this cutout at the back, which is so on trend at the moment. Cutouts are so fashionable at the moment. And I chose to alter it slightly because there was a tie at the back, but I cut the pattern piece on the fold instead, so that it's just one piece, because it wasn't really necessary having that tie there, because you've got an invisible zip opening here on the skirt, so you can actually get it on and off. You don't need something to fasten the bodice at the back, and I really like that nice clean finish without the tie there. It's got it hasn't got princess seams. It's got waist darts and bust darts on the front, so that gives a nice fit there. And then it's got princess seams down the skirt at the front and at the back, and then it's finished with the concealed zip at the back. And then it's a sort of like a midi length. It's just above the ankle on me. I'm 5'6" for reference. And then it's also got this lovely slit. So one of the princess seams just opens up on one side to give you a slit for a little bit of leg if you like. You can see the skirt's sort of fairly flared, you know, it's lovely and drapey and flowy, you can see this fabric in all its glory. I cannot rave enough about this fabric. I'm so in love with it. It's just beautiful for a dress like this, lovely and drapey and fluid, just gorgeous. So yeah, so here it is. I'll just give you one more twirl and then I'll talk you through what I did, how I made it, any adjustments and changes that I made. So let's talk about the pattern first. So it's 6696, as I mentioned. It runs in sizes 6 to 18. So a 6 is a 30.5 bust, 23 waist and 32.5 hip. And an 18 is a 40 bust, 32 waist and 42 hip. I made on the front armhole, I cut down to almost a size 8 around here because I'm very narrow here, but graded back out to a 12 at the shoulder because then on the back I needed the 12 on the back bodice, but that's just personal to me. I did a forward shoulder adjustment because my shoulders are forward, and I usually do a high round back adjustment, but I didn't bother with this on this pattern because obviously the high round back adjustment would be to correct this area up here, but there isn't any fabric there to correct, so it wasn't necessary on this pattern. And then I graded out to a 14 at the waist, and then I made a 14 in the skirt, but I had to make some drastic changes to all of that because obviously the skirt needs to fit like a glove here. It's got to fit really, really well because otherwise people are going to be able to see down the back there. You don't want any gapage going on there. So I ended up actually taking out of the centre back seam about 2 inches. So and the 14 was for a 28 waist, 38 hips, which is basically my measurements. I'm probably more of a 28.5 waist actually. But I did have to considerably remove out of that centre back seam. But when I did that, actually it worked out okay because I was sort of thinking, can I do that? Because it's going to move where the princess seams are down the back of the skirt. But actually, a good friend of mine, Anna Costa, who was a textiles tutor at Loughborough University, taught me some time ago that princess seams on the back, you always want them to run sort of fairly central down the back of your derriere, shall we say. So the back of your bum, you want them to be sort of fairly central rather than coming out towards the sides here. And actually taking that out of the centre back seam, it did mean that those princess seams sort of ran in the right place down the back. Having said that, this is a printed patterned fabric. You're not really going to be able to see the princess seams anyway, so it wouldn't have been too much of a drama, but I did want it to fit really well and I was really pleased with how that turned out. And then funnily enough, despite making those big dramatic alterations at the back, the front sort of was all in the right place. The side seams matched up nicely. I had to fiddle around a bit with the front princess seams to get them to match up with the waist darts because I did a size 10 on the waist darts. And obviously I'd cut a 14 out on the skirt and I didn't think about the fact that the 10 darts were going to be in a different place. So I just manipulated things and I manipulated the skirt because I didn't want to mess around with the darts. I'd pressed them and everything. But I just took some out of each of the front darts there to get them to where they needed to be and then just let out at the side seams a bit, and that all worked out beautifully. All the seams match up where they're supposed to, and I just tapered it back to the natural seam line, you know, just to keep that in the original place, but it was only like 1/8 of an inch on each seam, so it really isn't going to make any difference. You know, you can fudge these things if you need to. Not perhaps the correct or proper way to do it, but sometimes these things happen in a project and you just need to find a way to make it work. So that's what I did there. Just trying to think what other adjustments I made. I also had to shorten the waist, so I tried it on and the waist just seemed a bit too low. So I ended up shortening it by 5/8, and I'm really happy with where it's sitting now. It's definitely sitting on my natural waist. And to do that, I just overlapped the bodice by 5/8 beyond the raw edge of the skirt when I sewed them together, and it was quite a fiddly job because of the way I did the lining, which I'll talk to you about in a minute. But I'm so pleased that I did shorten it, because yeah, the waist would definitely have been in the wrong place on me. So let me just check my notes, because there's a lot to talk to you about here. So I think the first thing to say is, obviously I made that change on the bodice back where I omitted the tie, and I put the pattern piece against the fold. So it was just cut out as one continuous piece. And I think on the original pattern they suggest lining that back piece because it's supposed to have a tie, but then not lining anything else. But I decided to line the whole thing, so I had to work out how to line it, and to do that I just made a toile in our cheap calico, which you can buy on our website. I'll pop a link to it below. You've probably heard me talk about it lots of times before, but if ever I'm making something like this, and I was worried that the back wasn't going to fit very well and that might really gape, so if ever I've got any concerns like that, I just whip up a quick toile. It's really rough and ready. I could try it on for the fit, but also I could use it then to practice the lining. So I just had some poly cotton lying around in my stash at home, and I didn't even sew the darts and things together for the lining. I just pinned those in place, but just practiced working out how I could line this and turn it all through. And I did an Instagram step-by-step guide for exactly how I did it. So if anybody's interested, if you go to our Instagram account, the link's below, there's a carousel post probably from a couple of weeks ago where I show you literally step-by-step how I did it. I did downsize after I made that first toile. I did downsize because I wanted a closer fit, and it was much better. And I wrote down little notes on the toile of exactly what I did so I could remind myself. So yeah, I've just written on here that I did my forward shoulder. I also scooped the front. I dropped the front neckline a little bit. It seemed a little bit high, so I dropped that a little bit. I graded the side seams from a 10 to a 12 instead of a 12 to a 14. Trimmed the neckline to a size 10. So yeah, and then I did a slight grade from a 12 to a 14 near the waist. I also added on a little bit. I sort of dropped this bit here at the back just to hide my bra strap, and I'm not sure I quite dropped it quite enough. I don't know whether it's still a little bit visible there, but I can always just raise my bra strap a little bit. That's not a problem. And to be honest, I've got a really nice pink magenta bra that matches this fabric anyway, so I might just embrace my inner Carrie Bradshaw and you know, not worry about that on the day. I've talked to you about the centre back seam and taking a big piece out of that. And then the other adjustment I made was I'd pretty much finished the dress, and it's supposed to have like a little cap sleeve. And I got one of the sleeves in, and it just looked really weird. It was sort of like, it looked more like a flutter sleeve, but not really. And when I'd been trying the dress on anyway, I thought I really like it sleeveless actually. So in the end, what I decided to do was make my own binding with the leftover fabric that I had. There's a tutorial on our blog if you need to know how to do that. I'll pop a link to that below for you as well. But I made my own binding and just finished the armholes with a binding, which is I understitched to make sure it stays inside, and then I just hand stitched that down. So yeah, those are the adjustments that I made. And then yeah, with regards to the lining, there is that full tutorial on Instagram if you want to have a look, but I'll just run you through it here. I've had to make notes on this because I won't be able to remember it all, but I sewed the back bodice V's right sides together, so I put the lining on top of the main fabric and sewed the two V's in that back bodice. Then I trimmed and graded and turned it through, and understitched it, because I thought obviously you do not want that lining fabric poking down underneath that V at the back. So I understitched that and gave it a good press. Then I sewed the front bodice neckline right sides together, so the lining right sides together with the bodice, and sewed this curved neckline here at the front. Trimmed, graded and clipped those curves, understitched and pressed again. And then I sewed the lining shoulder seams together and the bodice shoulder seams together, right sides together. And then I was able to turn it through and press. And then I was able to sew the lining side seams together and the bodice side seams together, right sides together, and press. Now, when I did this, I did originally do the bodice side seams separately to the lining side seams. And then I found that it wasn't sitting quite right at the back. So in the end, what I decided to do, I unpicked that and I actually treated it as one piece of fabric and just sewed the side seams of the lining and the main fabric as one seam and pressed it open. So I've just got a pretty little glimpse of the fabric inside. And that was it. And then I turned it through and that was all done. The skirt, the other thing to mention, it was a good tip given to me by my mother-in-law. She said, you know, you do not want this stretching out of shape round here. And although I had understitched it, she suggested just ironing a little bit of very lightweight iron-on interfacing, probably like an inch or an inch and a half deep, just around this area here, just to give it some extra structure and stability. So I did do that. I'll pop a link to the interfacing below as well. I also used some interfacing on the seam allowances where I inserted the zip on the viscose as well, because that's always a really good tip if you're working with a really floaty, drapey, lightweight, well, it's not a lightweight fabric, but it's very floaty, fluid, drapey fabric. Just gives it some stability, and I was really pleased with how the zip turned out. Really, really pleased. I think I'll probably put a hook and eye at the top as well, just for extra security. But yeah, that was pretty much it really. I think construction wise, it was sort of, I mean, it's definitely more for an intermediate sewer. A beginner could have a go at it, but you've got to be prepared that you're going to be in for, you know, some challenges. I wouldn't recommend it as a beginner pattern, but for people who've got a bit of experience sewing, actually construction wise, it was very, very simple. Really enjoyable to sew and make. I just think it's such a beautiful design. I love the way it's so simple and understated at the front, and then it's just got this wow factor at the back. But then equally, just the little thigh slit just adds that little bit of interest on the front as well. So yeah, I just absolutely love the pattern, love the fabric. I know this is going to be a dress that is going to be in my wardrobe for years and years and years to come. I hope I always can wear it, because it is definitely one of the favourite things I have ever made. I should have just said as well, actually, when I did the lining, I sandwiched the bodice between the skirt layers, so and then flipped it. And I've talked to you about this method before on other things I've made. I think I might have shown you some images on my 40th birthday vlog that I did. I did the same technique on that dress. But the way you do it, you get your bodice and then you put your skirt right sides together with the bodice fabric, your main skirt fabric and your main bodice fabric right sides together, and then on the other side you've got your right side of your lining and you put your right side of your skirt fabric together with that. So you're sandwiching your bodice in the middle, you sew that all together, and then you're able to flip the skirt pieces down and everything's in its correct place. And then I just trimmed and graded those seams and finished them with an overlocking stitch to make it super neat, even though those seams are hidden inside the two layers of the skirt anyway. It just made it extra neat. So yeah, I'm absolutely delighted with it. I'm sure that will come across. don't forget, you can get your hands on this fabric. I've checked, we've got plenty coming in. So yeah, you'll be able to get your hands on this fabric. I'll put the pattern links below, everything will be below, but yeah, highly recommend. And you know, if this isn't the sort of thing you would wear, or you know, you wouldn't want to make this dress, this fabric's just so beautiful and versatile. You could make blouses with it if you're not a dress person. You could make skirts with it, you know, you can make dresses with it. It's just absolutely glorious, and I love it so much. So I hope you've enjoyed that today, everybody. If you like what you see today, remember, please do like and subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.